and gentlemen, how are we? Let's try that again. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, how are we? Fantastic. Welcome to the Science, Technology and Innovation Studies Cabaret. After your conference this week, has it been a great conference? And what way to end it with a cabaret? I didn't know scientists were into cabaret. It's like Scientologists being into science, isn't it? And you know, drama shouldn't been into anything else other than themselves. So it's good that you could be here. My name's Kieran McAllister. I'm your comedian. I'm a comedian, and I've been asked along tonight to host in place of Susan Morrison, who does some of these gigs. So it's lovely to be here. I did some research because as a comedian, I know nothing about what it is that you do. So I was sent some very kindly. Matt sent me some links to some information, so I did swat up, especially for this evening. And from what I can work out, you're the scientists who study scientists. Would that be about right? Yeah. I couldn't figure out if that meant that you were better than the scientists that you were studying, or if it just meant you couldn't get on their courses, so you decided to make a course up just to annoy them. I couldn't figure out if that was the deal here. It's the equivalent of me going to another comedian's gig and just shouting out their punchlines, isn't it? Basically, that's essentially what you do. There was another link that was to do with what you do. I was sent a link to the Science Wars. That was disappointing. Not one laser gun. I was so disappointed. No one even get burned with a Bunsen burner. I was so disappointed. I was expecting, you know, a lab technician on the back of a Harley with a pump shotgun, but no, that never happened. But I was looking at your tenets as well, and one of them is impartiality. This idea that a bad result is every bit as valid as a good result. As a comedian, I beg to differ. You know, I would like one of you just to follow me around to gigs and explain that to all my audiences. You know, my wife definitely wouldn't agree. And there are bad results. There has to be bad. Trump would be a bad result. You know, that's a scary proposition that we're facing, isn't it? People in Scotland are terrified of Trump. He could be the first president to bomb a country for its wind farms. That could genuinely happen. First man to start a war against windmills and storm Quixote. You know, it's incredible what's happening over there. What's the interesting thing about Trump? I'm not the interesting, the horrible reality of Trump is that he's managed to convince previous Democrats to vote for him. I was watching the Channel 4 News this week. They went up to some Americans and they said, why are you voting for Trump? And they said, let's just give him a shot at the White House. Let's give him a shot at the White House and see what he does in 4 years. I give him 30 minutes before America starts looking like Mad Max, the documentary. Don't give someone a shot at the White House in the same way that you don't give your cat a shot at driving your kids to school. It's just the same proposition. But yeah, so that's a bad result that I thought that I would just dwell on. I do gig a lot. I get mistaken for a lot of people quite a lot of the time. I was outside the gig the other night, and a gentleman came up to me and he went, do you know who you look like? And I went, I don't know. And he said, Colin Murray. And I went, I don't know who that is. And he went, he's a guy off the radio. And I went, that doesn't help. I was standing outside the university today, and a guy came up to me and he went, do you know who you look like? And I went, I know Colin Murray, I get it all the time. And he went, no, Sue Perkins. So, yeah. She's got more facial hair, I think. I'm just trying to untangle this microphone. So, tonight we have a variety of things on for you this now that is about to come up, and just a plethora of interesting things that you're going to be entertained by over the next hour. But let's see who we've got in the audience. Do we have Scottish people in the audience? One. Oh, that's good. One. That's it. That's a good tally for Edinburgh. We have to ask the sister. We have to ask the sister question. Do we have any English people in? Yeah. See, you feel quite bold saying that in Edinburgh, don't you? Ask that question in Glasgow, usually you're holding on to the back of the tables, saying, don't say a word, it's a trap, it's a trap. Did you smear yourself with chips like I told you before we came out? That's certainly the way it was. We like English people in Scotland, especially this year. You get flooded as well. That was great for us. Say what you like about global warming. There's nothing funnier for a Scotsman than switching on the telly and seeing an Englishman swim up the street after his couch. You know, it just makes a change. Yeah, do we have anyone from further afield? Any Americans in? Yeah, Americans. Not as bold as Americans usually are in an audience. Usually they're standing up. It's Jerry Springer style. We struggle with Americans in Scotland as well, because you have Americanisms, don't you? You say, for instance, we say bum bag, and you say fanny pack. And that's difficult in Scotland, because everyone in Scotland knows that's an orange walk. So, no one gets sectarianism jokes. Don't do that. What about Australians? Anyone from Australia, New Zealand, those kind of places? I'm just back from there. Scottish people, again, we struggle with Australians because Australians tend to have a lot of energy, don't they? Tend to be happy all the time. Scottish people can't manage that. I was sharing a flat with an Australian during the Edinburgh Festival one year. There was 4 Scottish guys, 1 Australian guy. 4 Scottish guys got up at 2 o'clock every day with a hangover. The Australian boy been up since 7 o'clock in the morning, been for a run, made 3 new friends and organised a trip to Thailand, right? I haven't done that in my life yet. Kept on saying things like, let's go to the park, we've got a park. When did that happen? Sit down and eat your chips. There you go. So do we have anyone from further afield than the places I've mentioned? Chile. Fantastic. And are you over here for the course? Are you studying over here? Oh, he is. You're just pointing people out now. Oh, the guy at the bar. Oh, right, okay. Okay. I couldn't see where you were pointing the lights of my eyes. I thought it was a gentleman. You even pointed the guy out across the room. That's terrible. It's interactive stuff. Well, I don't want to bore you with too many jokes. I want to get on with the exciting events. And we do we've got theatre tonight, we've got storytelling, we even have a special quiz at the end. Are we excited about that? Yeah! Fantastic. So I think we just need to loosen you up as an audience, get you as one. That's what a good compere does. So I think what we'll do is we'll get everyone just to raise your hands in the air. Just do that, just loosen up these muscles. I want you to start wiggling your fingers. Just wiggle your fingers like that. And just to get warmed up as an audience, keep your fingers wiggling. And what I want you to do is just load them gently into the lap of the person sitting next to you. It's just a nice way to start the show. We're all there. Good. That's excellent. Well, listen, this is a great event. And before we go on, any highlights of the conference that anyone wants to offer so far? Great! So it's been a worthwhile conference. You've got to the end of it. That's fantastic. No highlights, no great parties. What was that, sorry? Oh, yeah, you've come fabulously dressed tonight. Well done, madam. That's, I've got a semi up here. It's interesting. Let's get on with the proceedings. First of all, what I want you to do is, first of all, give yourselves a big round of applause for coming out tonight. And I'm going to introduce the first people onto this stage. Now, they're from the Cabaret of Dangerous Ideas. Is anyone aware of the Cabaret of Dangerous Ideas? Maybe other people have done it in here. It's a fantastic thing. It happens during the Fringe, but I think it happens out with the Fringe. I've been lucky enough to conquer some of them. And it's just interesting academics and people of interest who can come along and they can present their ideas to the public. And it's a great interactive way for people to pick up on interesting things and interesting subjects that they might not be able to get access to. It's running through the Fringe, and our first 2 guests are both performing there. I'll give you the details afterwards. But I'll let them explain what they're about to do. So we have a massive round of we need someone at the front here. You, madam, what's your name?
Oh, Mary Chill.
Mary Chill?
Yeah, Mary Chill. Yeah.
Mary Chill?
Yeah.
That's a lovely name. You can be my cheerleader tonight. So what you're going to do is you're going to start off the clapping. You're going to spread the clap throughout the room. Not like that. It's not Leith. We'll get the first section of the show on. Are we up for that, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah. Fantastic. Please start off the clapping and please welcome to the stage Mr. Angus Bancroft and Richard Miller.
Thanks very much, Kieran, for that. Fantastic. Glad to see I've been outed as a Scotsman here. So me and Matthias are doing the Cabaret of Dangerous Ideas this year at the Edinburgh Festival, and the Cabaret of Dangerous Ideas is a fantastic concept. What they have is every day an academic comes along with a strange, bizarre, baffling sounding concept, which they explain to an audience of the public and try and persuade them that this idea maybe isn't quite as crazy as it sounded initially, or at least if it's equally crazy, we can explain it, but with much longer, more complicated words than they used originally. So I did one 2 years ago on the subject of alcohol pricing, and my theme was alcohol costs too much, and that was fantastic because we had some, I didn't realise at the time there was a court case going on with the Scottish Government who were battling the alcohol industry over minimum unit pricing. And the Scottish Government sent along a little delegation of professionally angry people to the audience. That made a lot of fun, dangerous indeed. This year I'm performing the topic of cybercrime is good for society. So again, it's like that a troublesome one to defend, but I think I've got a kind of good idea of what I might do. So this is based on my research on the dark net. I always say that because I want a little kind of dark net. Scary bit of cyberspace. The dark net is the hidden, encrypted part of the internet. It's you can't Google it. You need special software to get on it. It's used for anonymous communication, and we human beings, being very innovative kind of people that we are, we use it to get round all sorts of laws that some of us don't like laws about trafficking drugs, buying and selling drugs, trafficking stolen data, and so on. It's also used by dissidents in repressive regimes to communicate with each other without the government knowing what they're saying. And it's used by people who value their privacy law, which is something I don't think we value really enough, because you aren't private most of the time when you're online. Your internet service provider knows a lot about you. TalkTalk or BT or whoever know what websites you visit. They quite possibly know the content of your emails. They can do all sorts of fancy tricks using analysis of big data sets to predict your behavior, to find out things about you that you haven't even said, that you may not even have revealed to yourself about your habits. And you may want to keep private. You may not want that knowledge about yourself turned into a commodity owned by corporations whose services you use. The darknet does many things, and it's very much like the original vision of the internet. It's the original vision of the internet as a free space where people can communicate without their identities mattering very much. So that's some benefits. It's also, as I say, host to many nefarious characters. There's a website called the Besa Mafia Albanian assassination site. They're very good at branding, the darknet. And it's got a fantastic kind of Uber for thugs explanation of what it's about. So the idea is that you can go on and you can pay using Bitcoin, the peer-to-peer currency, to have someone killed, if you want. So you pay your Bitcoin. There's a great chart they have. You pay Bitcoin, and like Uber, you know, the message goes to the nearest car to come and pick you up. Well, here, message goes to nearest thug. Nearest thug will come and kill your target that you've decided. Or you can dial in different kinds of crimes as well. So you can dial in if you want someone just beaten up a bit, you know, just beating them up a little bit, or just really give them a good thrashing. So you get different rates, you know, so it's very competitive. And the great thing about it is it's a scam to part idiots from their money. So they've never assassinated anyone, of course, but they get... So what? Oh, I tried to have you killed, Steve. No, they didn't. It's not happening. Unless it's tonight. Oh, actually. Well, I've got a text. Come in. Yeah. I'm giving that 1 star. 5. So the great thing is, you know, it's a self-regulating market. Criminals, idiots are apart from their money. You know, these things aren't necessarily remotely as scary as they first appear. As ever, the internet doesn't create bad behavior. You know, it enables some and it prevents others. Another common use of the darknet is to traffic and trade drugs. And this is a very big, growing industry. People go online shop for all kinds of drugs, heroin, cannabis, LSD and so on, and they rate the purchase very much like eBay or Amazon. You rate, did it arrive, was it as it's described, was it in a good condition, was it a great smoke, did you get a good experience from it? And they share these, and these are good because they take the violence of the face-to-face drug market and they replace it with a system of contracts where disputes can be resolved by, in theory anyway, by an administrator making a decision about a particular drug trade, rather than by whoever's got the heaviest weaponry or most willing to use violence. So it's got another benefit there. It replaces potentially violent relationships with ones of debate and decision making. Again, and it's more transparent. People can see what kind of drugs they're getting. It reduces the chance of overdose because they know what they're taking. So there's a much reduced chance of getting something maybe that's the wrong strength, maybe you don't know what's in it, that you might use damagingly. Again, other benefits of that market, and I think this is something where you'll probably all recognise this, is there's an impression that the internet is this free floating space that doesn't exist anywhere. And in fact, a huge amount of labour goes into producing them, a huge amount of coding skill goes into creating these websites. So just as in the 80s and the 90s, chemistry students at Edinburgh would cook up LSD and ecstasy in the labs at King's Building, allegedly, to supplement their student grant, now students of computer sciences can earn quite a decent amount of money as IT specialists for these markets. So thank you, David Cameron, for introducing student fees in England and Wales. You've created a fantastic labour source for the criminal underworld. And even better than that, of course, is the way in which these services have become so informationalised, so much like the regular corporate world. They even have IT and HR departments, so we can tell that these are truly evil organisations. They have HR, the final, they crossed the final line there. So I don't know how the HR departments work in these organisations. Maybe you haven't beaten up enough people this week. You really need to up your metrics there. So impact. You're not showing any impact. Okay, so a few advantages there. There are also advantages more broadly for everybody when we use the technologies that are promoted by the designers of the darknet systems, by the designers of Bitcoin. We encrypt our communications. We come to recognize how important it is to protect the things that we're doing online. So it has a much wider social benefit. It promotes encryption technology, and that increased security. Well, it might allow people who are criminals or terrorists to communicate, but it protects what we're doing from, not just from governments, but from hostile actors, from cyber criminals and so on. So that, I think, is the final, the most important benefit. It creates this protection for all of us. So that's why cybercrime is good for society. Thank you very much for your listening. Thank you.
I won't do another spiel because, as usual, Angus overran a bit. No, just kidding. No, it wasn't that. It was just to say that, as it was mentioned earlier, there'll actually be not just Angus's show, but other shows that are related to STS. Miguel's planning one with, I don't want to put you on the spot, but Miguel's planning one with the Roslyn. No, okay, right. But the Roslyn people are doing the show, right? Which is
in the cabaret.
in the gap. No, not now. No, not now. It wasn't meant to be like go and do it now. No. For the Cabaret of Dangerous Ideas, yes. And Jill's doing a show about a shop that she wants to open, which sells body parts, and you should go and find out what that's all about. And also those of you who were around when I first started, you might remember Gary Kerr. He was an MSc student with me, and he's coming back. He's now a PhD student at the University of Salford. He's coming back with another Cabaret of Dangerous Ideas shows as well. Okay, so there'll actually be quite a few different things. And yes, there's a little me as well, but let's not talk about that. Okay, I'll pass you on to the very, very capable hands of our because this was really meant to be a commercial.
A round of applause for Angus and for Matt. The details of that, so the Cabaret of Dangerous Ideas is on this is St Andrew's Square. It's called Stand in the Square. It's a nice wee yacht, and I think Angus is on the 19th of August, is that right? And Matt, you're on, I do have the details. 15th, there we go.
Jill's, I think, is 30th or something like that.
Brilliant. But if you go on the line either to the Stand website or the Fringe website, you'll see all those dates. But again, a round of applause for the Cabaret of Dangerous Ideas. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited about this. We're going to have a writer up here who's going to be reading some of her stuff. She's an astronomer and she's a creative writer. Her new book is called The Falling Sky, and it's about an astronomer who discovers the universe and loses her mind. That happens to me most weekends, so I'm looking forward to hearing this. She's got a list of credits to her name, and she's appeared at festivals and on Radio 4. I think you're going to really enjoy this next 15 minutes, so please, a round of applause for the wonderful Miss Pippa Goldschmidt.
Pause while, yeah. Thanks. Not that short. I am pretty short. Okay, that's probably about right. That's great. Thanks. It's really good to be here on stage. Spotlight. No, it's been a really interesting conference. I've had some odd flashbacks in a way, as you might have realised when Harry Collins was talking yesterday about gravitational waves, and I got a bit overexcited about and started questioning him about the actual science, and then I realised that I shouldn't be talking about science in that way. So anyway, so I used to be an astronomer, and I also, when I left academia, I took up a job in the UK government, which probably has the best, and the job I had probably has the best job title in the world. For a brief moment in the space policy section of the UK government, I was the regulator of outer space. And, of course, it being the UK government, I had an office the size of a cupboard somewhere over the station, the Victoria Station in London. And what actually happened was that we didn't really have a clue how to regulate outer space. And what we did actually do was to go to Washington to find out how the Americans regulated outer space. So they had a much bigger office. I never really figured out how they got away with that. Anyway, so we had a tiny office, and there I used to sit and sort of scratch my head and try and figure out what on earth I was doing most of the time. And after I left the civil service, I became a writer. I've had a couple of books published. This is a collection of short stories. And so I want to read out a couple short stories and a couple bits of poetry. And the first one is inspired by being the regulator of outer space. It's called The Voice Activated Lift. When my department moved into a new open plan office, the managers asked me to work out the seating arrangements. I was given a large sheet of graph paper, and I drew little boxes on it in a grid formation, and I wrote a name in each box. Each box was a desk, and each name was a person. I thought it worked quite well. I'd even managed to allocate space for the pot plants, as well as for the breakout areas with coffee machines to encourage the staff to relax. We were allowed to purchase sofas for these areas, and by all accounts they've been highly successful. The plants are thriving. My own desk happened to be next to the only window in the office. Unfortunately, although this was merely a coincidence, my colleagues noticed and they stopped speaking to me. They never spoke to me very often anyway, and so it hasn't made a lot of difference to my life. But I don't feel I can sit on the sofas, and people visit me only when they have to pass on some work. My desk is quite near the lift, which is the first voice-activated one I have ever encountered. There are no buttons to press, just a small metal grille, and when someone gets into the lift, a voice comes out of the grille and says, "Speak speak the number of the floor into this grill clearly and slowly. Sometimes the lift's voice is the only one that speaks to me all day. The voice is female, nice and gentle sounding, and I enjoy listening to her. On the first day in the new office, I tried out the lift. 1, I said, and it worked. The journey was smooth, the lift's motion almost imperceptible. I became curious about the lift's abilities, so I decided to test it. 2, no, perhaps I mean 3, I'm not quite sure. But it managed to ignore my attempt to mislead it. It just picked out the essential information and delivered me to the correct floor. The managers were pleased with my seating plan, but the next piece of work that they gave me was somewhat more demanding. I must write a report with a definition of outer space. I've been working on this for weeks, trying to understand the views of all the different experts. When I get stuck, I stare out of my window at the city, at the sky above, always busy with planes and clouds. The managers and the minister need to know where outer space is so that they can regulate it. All I can say for certain is that outer space is a long way above this government department. When I'm working on the report, I can picture myself floating above a long way above all this ordinary stuff. Monday morning, on the way to work, I treat myself to a cafe latte with hazelnut syrup. And when I get into the lift, I feel like I don't really want to go to my desk yet, so I tell it a half. It starts to move and then it slows to a halt in that secret no man's land that always exists between floors. It stops there for precisely the same length of time that my colleagues used to spend politely laughing at one of my jokes. And then without either of us saying anything, it delivers me to my own floor. All day as I sit trying to work on the report, I can see the lift out of the corner of my eye. Its doors open periodically to reveal its inner metallic space. And I can hear my colleagues telling it numbers in slow, solemn voices, like children in primary school learning how to count. I still haven't finished the report, although my managers are waiting for it, the minister's waiting for it, everyone out there is waiting for it. But I don't know what it will say. None of the numbers make any sense to me. I spend my day gazing at Excel spreadsheets. And when I'm not doing that, I stare out the window and try not to imagine things crashing out of the sky onto the people below. Last month, the Russian satellite fell to Earth in the Outer Hebrides, and every news site around the world had pictures of the remains of a dog walker and his dog being scraped up. After that, there were calls for something to be done, laws to be passed. But in order to regulate something, the government has to know what it is, or at least where it is. And no one can agree on where precisely normal, everyday space stops and outer space starts. My job is supposed to make the definitive pronouncements, but each expert that's been consulted has a different opinion. So the report is still imaginary. I have a title for it, and listings, headings for the different parts of it. I've even typed my own name at the end of it. The rest of it is just blank, white space. At lunchtime, I'm looking forward to escaping for a bit. Talking to the lift is the first time I've spoken today, so I test it again. 1 minus 1. My voice is a bit croaky from lack of use, but the lift doesn't hesitate. It's clearly able to do maths, and so it takes me to the ground floor. That afternoon, there's another email from the managers. Parliament has been waiting for the report for so long that they suspect there's been some kind of cover-up. And they've summoned me to give evidence to the Outer Space Committee. I've never heard of this committee before. Perhaps it's made up of politicians bobbing around in spacesuits. When I was young, I saw 2001, The Space Odyssey, and I fantasised about being an astronaut. After that, whenever I felt lonely at school, because the other children weren't talking to me, I'd imagine being all safe and snug inside my spacesuit and doing a walk outside my rocket, completely surrounded by space. That thin layer of the spacesuit will be the only barrier between me and infinity. But now I'm stuck, because I can't find the line that I always assumed was there. Perhaps there is no obvious barrier, and it's more of a gentle thinning out of daylight and air to darkness and vacuum. Perhaps each astronaut must learn how to travel upwards through the prosaic clutter to beautiful emptiness. I feel agitated by the summons to the committee. So I leave my desk and wander over to the breakout area. Even though we haven't been in the office longer than a few weeks, I'm dismayed to see that the sofas have already acquired a layer of food stains and crumbs. They look thoroughly used. And when I return to my desk a few minutes later, I can tell that someone's disturbed it. The stack of papers has been ruffled. The array of biros is out of kilter. My coffee mug has been moved. I look around, but everyone appears to be hard at work. No way of telling who has been there, disturbing my space. I can't work anymore. I have to leave the office. In the lift, I become calmer as I experience its slow but sure motion down through the building. I place my hand on the wall of the lift. It feels warm and it's vibrating slightly, making me think of a sleeping body curled up next to me in my bed. I'm capable of imagining such a thing. The next day, there is nothing on my desk. No paper or biros or in tray. Even my computer and keyboard have gone. All that's left is a smooth, flat surface to contemplate. Perhaps the managers have moved me to another office, or perhaps it's an extension to yesterday's disturbance. There's no way of telling. It's sort of restful in a way to sit at an empty desk when everyone around me is working. But after a few minutes I get bored. I go over to the lift and I stand in the middle of it, not particularly near the grill, so I have to speak in a loud voice and all of my colleagues can hear me. Pi, pi, says the lift's voice softly. Pi is the endlessly beautiful number that can never be completely known. Perhaps it's odd to stand in the metal cube of the lift and be reminded of pi, but there is something about the unreal voice in the lift that is better than any other voice I've had to listen to. The door shuts. I lean against the wall and feel the lift's tiny judder travel through my body as it tries to calculate my commands. It creeps from approximation to approximation in search of mathematical perfection without once complaining. I know it will take an eternity to calculate pi. I can relax in here. So I'm going to read out a poem now, which is inspired by my personal experiences of having briefly worked in Chile quite a long time ago when I was an astronomer. As some of you might know, Chile is probably the best country in the world to do astronomy. Woo! There have been observatories there since the 1960s or so. And these observatories have been founded, the first one was founded by a consortium of European countries, led by Italy and France and Germany. And this consortium, this observatory has been in place ever since, and I think recently, like SSU has celebrated its 50th anniversary. And I started going out there quite a long time ago, and as you know, Chile's had a troubled and divided history. And I started going there just after it was restored to democracy, after the military regime had been in place for a long time. And what always troubled me was that a lot of astronomers used to go there from European countries, and we were told not to talk about politics. And the other astronomers that I encountered seemed very ignorant of what had happened in Chile and the terrible things that had taken place during the 70s and 80s. And this always troubled me to the extent that when I looked at the official history of the European Southern Observatory in Chile, there is only one brief sentence about the coup that happened in 1973, and all it says is that the electricity supplied to the observatory was briefly cut off before they managed to restore it. So I've written this poem in response, and it's been published in several anthologies now, and it's called From the Unofficial History of the European Southern Observatory in Chile. When our war is over, we go to Chile, buy a mountain in the desert, build telescopes with the power to detect a naked flame on the moon. Here, the sky curves closer to the Earth, galaxies light years away are observed, young stars shrouded in dust are revealed, new comets are discovered, recorded, catalogued. But we can't look at everything. The moon is too bright. Jupiter burns our camera. We avoid explosions in the south. We run out of things to see, so we invent new things. Dark matter to stop galaxies flying apart. dark energy to speed up the universe. But we can't find these dark things. Our telescopes have the power to detect a naked flame on the moon, or a light shone by a soldier into the face of a prisoner in a camp not far from here. Here the lone and level sands stretch far away, but I'm no Shelley writing Ozymandias. I'm only Goldschmidt et al. I publish what I see. I can't see the dark things. Planes bombing the presidential palace, explosions in the south, camps hidden from view. This is one problem which we cannot solve. Find X, where X is equal to the number of people buried in a desert not far from here. So I'm going to read out a couple of very short pieces. These are called flash fictions, and the thing I like about flash fictions is that they can, you can really summarise an entire narrative in a single page. And so, as you probably know through sort of talking to me or hearing me speak, that I'm interested in the way that fiction can interact with science, the way it can interrogate science and sort of open up science, which is in a similar way to, I think, to what you do, to the sociologist of science. Sometimes fiction has a lot of flexibility to it, more flexibility than academics have. So this piece is perhaps a bit less real and a bit more surreal. It's a title story to my collection, The Need for Better Regulation of Outer Space. The GPS was the first clue, for us at least, that something had gone wrong. Day after day on the school run, it insisted we were somewhere else. Snarled up in traffic in Saigon, stuck outside a checkpoint in East Jerusalem, or battling our way through the waves to St. Kilda. We took the GPS back to the shop, but they said there was a problem with all the satellites now, and they suggested we buy an A to Z. That was the same day we tried to watch the Cup match on Sky, but the pitch was covered in echoes of past games, all piled up on each other, like pages torn out of an old book. The electric ghosts of old players scored goals against each other over and over again, at least until the TV burst into flames. They just couldn't cope with all that information. Then the satellites started crashing into each other like celestial dodgems, and all the astronauts in the space stations were trapped, waiting for help that could never reach them. It got to the point where we could go and sit outside at night, reading our books by the light of the debris catching fire as it slammed around above our heads. Some of this debris was large enough to survive the atmosphere and reach us on the patio, and we wondered why it had been so important to launch a coffee cup or a pencil into outer space in the first place, and whether the astronauts had been slightly too ambitious in their choice of poetry anthologies, and exactly how much the dead millionaire had paid to have his ashes launched into space. We could use the coffee cups, but the poetry was a bit charred around the edges and frankly second rate, so it went to Oxfam. The ashes sat on the mantelpiece and glowed as if they were being resurrected. That was okay, but the body of an astronaut still strapped to its ejector seat was just too much. It only just missed our greenhouse, made a crater in the lawn. Now there's no more night, and the sky's turned into grey junk, so we're having a summer holiday in the living room. We're pretending it's Glastonbury under the dining table, converted into a shelter in case any more debris rains down. So there's a lot of talk in astronomy circles about dark matter, and I think astronomers take a lot of support from this thing that they've never actually detected. So I wrote a poem about the oddity of that, of how you need something that you can't grasp in your hands. So this is the search for dark matter. There have been many suggestions about the exact nature of it, and many experiments set up to detect it, and none of them succeeded. It's a light bulb of a star too small to turn on, neutrinos too flimsy to tip the scales, particles too cold to warm our hands. It's the experimental error, the cross-hatched area underneath the curve, the gap between pencil and paper, the mathematical failure to write what we think. I picture it as the back of my head, or the shape of your mouth when we're on the phone, what we must search for and will never find. So I'm going to finish with a very short piece that's different in many ways, partly because it's inspired by genetics, and I wrote it when I was a writer-in-residence at the Genomics Forum many years ago, which was a fantastic place to work and a great job. And this is also a different piece because it's more personal. It's about my German grandfather, who I never met. It's a short story, but everything in it is true. It's called Identity Theft. In 1935, an official removed my grandfather's citizenship, ignoring the scars inflicted on him at the Somme, and a medal awarded to him for bravery. On a wall of the official's office was a diagram that reminded my grandfather of biology lessons at school. Green peas can be bred from yellow ones, but he couldn't remember why this was so. Happened greenness, or was it yellowness, lurk invisibly in a generation of peas before reappearing in their offspring. Now, as the official ran his finger up and down the lines connecting black and white circles, my grandfather wished he'd paid more attention in school. Then, after passing through the deaf and blind city streets, the official let himself into my grandfather's apartment. It was his duty to confiscate my grandfather's complete set of Beethoven symphonies for safekeeping. The official scratched his Mendelssohn records and scribbled on the pages of his Kafka. But my grandfather could keep the theory of relativity, communism, and that nonsense about the unconscious. So he set off for England with Freud, Marx, and Einstein to keep him company on the boat. Long before Crick and Watson discovered the double helix structure of DNA, my grandfather could have told you about the twin strands of German and Hebrew knotted around his tongue. It was a difficult job to unpick all this and splice English words into it. Words he accumulated from reading Dickens, jam jars, Orwell, army orders, ration books, newspapers, advertising hoardings, railway tickets, Joyce, laundry labels, street signs. I never met him, but I inherited from him a dislike of Wagner and a predisposition to diabetes. His collected works of Dickens, with German words penciled in the margins, are all mixed up with my books and my shelves. I traced the marks he made, knowing his interpretations can be trusted when I'm on holiday in Munich, swigging back the beer at Oktoberfest. And so it goes on. When I say I, in my South London accent, the Scottish friend laughs at me. It's not my words, and anyway, what do I want with it? But I'll pick my way through your language, and like a magpie stealing shiny buttons, I'll take what I want from my stories. Thank you.
Happy Goldschmidt, ladies and gentlemen. I can't believe that I've met a deep space regulator. That's great. When I tell the story, you're going to have a laser gun. Is that okay? Excellent. Good. That was fantastic. And we'll go from fiction and writing and storytelling to theatre. And this is, I'm really looking forward again to seeing this. It's another interesting project that was put together by computer scientists and playwrights with the Traverse Theatre. It's called the Data and the Future City. I think it was on in March this year. So I'm going to hand you over to the cast.
I actually know why you're here. Do you? Yes, I do.
Can you read our minds now as well?
Yeah, I can read your mind, but that's actually totally pointless. A good body reading tells you everything you need to know, and the technology's not really ready there, so it's going to be another 20 years.
That's very interesting.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah.
Now, can you do it then?
No. No, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to say goodbye for now, and also remind you that the smoking bubble is on the 3rd floor. You go across the walkway, and then the left exit on the right. You know you're a smoker.
I don't
3 cigarettes and 4 units of alcohol last night.
You are not allowed to.
Well, actually, I do have that level of clearance, but that's not really the point. You're not really reading me, okay? And I'm just telling you that you should go to the smoking bubble on the 3rd floor, okay? Right? Cross the walkway, first left door on the right. Okay? And
Okay.
I can't really scrub your daughter's data record, but because that would be a violation of the large number of trusts that were placed upon me by the city state of Edinburgh. So I really can't do that, but yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Tatty bye. Bye bye. Right. I made it. It's
Did
done.
you?
Yes. It was actually very easy.
Wait, yes. Yes.
Well,
Did you? I mean, what is it?
Well, it was easy, but unfortunately, I've got a little proposition for you, because if you don't listen to me, you might never get a chance to see Edinburgh again. You basically won't be able to see across the ring road, basically. And
Okay. What is it?
it's about your daughter, about Susie.
Susie. Yeah. What? I mean,
Is your daughter Susie? Is she really okay?
she's fine. What's up? Seriously, what's wrong?
Well,
Susie.
Susie's data was displaying some little physical stress yesterday.
No, she's fine. Look, she's in the nursery right now. Look, she's happy. Look, what's
Well, according to her data, she's been hit this week. Actually, quite large.
No.
And unfortunately, you were the only person near her when this happened.
I did. Is this real? Has she really been hit? I mean, maybe someone at the nursery. I mean, horses. No, look, I would know if something was wrong. She's normal. Look, she's fine.
Well, in that case, I think that the data must be glitchy.
You know it doesn't do that.
Well, but did you hit Susie then?
No.
So the data must be wrong.
No.
It must be wrong. Well, it doesn't really matter in many ways, unless, basically, whatever we do, she's probably going to be picked up by the social workers tomorrow, or maybe even today.
Fuck. No, look, I've got to go and get her. Just.
Well, listen, maybe I could help. Like, maybe I could help. Yes.
Really?
Well, I could try and make this data disappear again.
Well, do it. Stop hanging around these fucking walls and do it.
Well, but I would need you to do something for me.
You're blackmail. You're black. Okay. What do you want?
Somewhere inside that building, there is a version of me derived from data. Under lock and key, a version of me in code, in ones and zeros, on a circuit board in a system that is a snake eating its own tail. Collected, created, and curated by a little wristband that writes my identity as digital. It shows an outline of a man much like the one who stands here before you, with the footnote of an exceptional exception, with no hangover and no cigarette. He'd even said that I'd hit my daughter. Later, when he said he might be able to do the favor I needed, look, I didn't do it. I'd sooner slit my throat and apologize for bleeding on your shoes than have my daughter feel fear at my fists. And I feel a soul-stirring sadness and sickness at the thought of the accusation. I mean, you can call me many things, but a bad doesn't make everything else transparent. But any tool is a weapon if you hold it right. And I will fight. I will digitally disappear if I have to. Just vanish. Yeah, it's been a long time since we've seen the ocean. Just while we find a way to fix this, to finish this, no, to thrive in this. Because I shouldn't be working for the system. The system should be working for me.
See, look, a lion, a giant lion, a live lion, somewhere in Africa. In school, we're studying animals of the savannah, and we have to watch them in their natural habitat. Mum said they used to keep them in cages, but now I can see them. A real live lion without leaving my bedroom. I'm going to download a zebra tomorrow. I can see anywhere in the world if I wanted to. I turn 11 next week. Me and my friends are going on a simulation safari. I hope it doesn't smell too bad. After my birthday, I'm allowed to walk myself to school. Mum always says it's safer now, safer than when I was your age. Can't imagine a car. Why would you take a car when you can walk? Dad works away. He works in the ocean, finding ways to make it so we can live there. His avatar comes for dinner every night, though. It means I'm not missing quite so much because it's like he's actually here, really. He's actually nicer as an avatar. He doesn't take up so much space on the sofa, and he doesn't leave mess and stuff. Great-granddad's birthday is the week after mine. He'll be 132. He acts more like 80, though. He's forever saying it's better now, cleaner, safer, cheaper, and I just find it normal. I mean, I like this normal. I like me normal, because if you look backwards too much, you just trip up on what's coming next. When I grow up, I'll be a doctor. Though my granny jokes me I don't need doctors anymore. She says death is dying out. She's a nurse. She loves her job, but if I'm going to do something, I really want to do it. So I'll be a doctor. Or maybe I'll be an explorer. There's still so much of the solar system to see. Maybe I'll invent something and change the world. Maybe I'll run the world. Maybe a lifetime is a long time. And I've got literally a zillion things to do. I'd like one of those new watch things for my birthday. I want it blue, because blue's my favourite colour, but though you can change it with just a tab. It becomes purple or any other colour. And you can do whatever you want with it, which is fun. For tomorrow, I've got to write a whole paragraph about my home. A whole paragraph. Don't know if there's that much to say. Although Mars seems like fun and the savannah seems warm, I like it here. Would that do? I mean, I'd like a puppy. But Mummy says if you have everything you appreciate, if you have everything, you appreciate nothing. And that sounds like a lie to me. I mean, if you had everything, you'd just be happy, wouldn't you? And who doesn't want to be happy? I think in the future, everyone will be happy and safe, and I can't think of a person who doesn't want that. I also can't think of anybody who doesn't want a puppy.
It's not so much here as here now, at night, the centre of the city at night. When all the busyness has calmed, especially the wind blowing in my hair, like it is now, you can smell the sea and the flowers in all the parks and the gardens. But the thing I really love, the reason we're here now, is because I love watching people. walking along the street at night, as the lights follow them. Beautiful. Their silhouettes against the informatics. You can totally see who people are as they walk along as well.
Can you? I don't understand. Who are they?
Well, okay.
Well,
eyes up here, please. Well, you can guess, can't you? Look, see him. Vegetarian.
Yes, indeed.
I bet. See his information poster there. Must be a vegetarian. Oh, a vegetarian data analyst. Single. Oh, and hungry.
Oh, I like this.
You do it. Her.
Okay, I see. Well, she must be a nurse. Maybe she's a carer. But no, I think the way she looks, she must be a nurse.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I can see she's learning tango. This is great, just so much fun.
You never noticed this before.
No, I don't. No, well, this is just normal, isn't it?
Yes, but beautiful too. I love the reflection of the information in the fountains and the cooling systems. How the images are shaken into rainbows and resolve again for a moment before someone else walks by. It's amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for data. You all need a cold shower after that. That was erotic. It was erotic. It was great. It was like a body ate a lot of it. Now, have you enjoyed the show so far, ladies and gentlemen? Fantastic. Big 5 feet performances. Please give one more round of applause for all the performances that you've seen up here tonight. It's been fantastic. As promised, we have a quiz to end with. I unfortunately have to head away to a gig, but I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of Justina and Matt. I think they're going to come up and be able to organise